On TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is TalkTV.
Tonight on Piers Morgan Uncensored, Donald Trump ducks under the debate as the 7 top rivals to replace him make their pitch to be leader of the free world. But can any of them actually top Trump? Scientists begin using AI to search for extraterrestrial life as experts here on Earth warn it could be the end of humanity as we know it. I'll ask one of the world's biggest brains if we should be excited or terrified. Plus, inevitably, Cinderella is being recast as a man. Cinderfella will probably be rescued by a princess in a diverse and equitable new production of the classic, or just a load of old virtue-signalling flannel. We'll debate whether this is the dumbest thing to have happened this week in woke world, or maybe just in the last few hours.
Live from the News Building in London, this is Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. We start with news of a secret operation inside the White House which will strike fear into the hearts of America's allies and delight its enemies. And yes, I have got that the right way round. It's called Operation Don't Let Joe Biden Fall. And it's billed as a critical project too, quite literally prop up the president. Biden's blunders and stumbles have become a crisis for his re-election campaign, with a whopping 75% of Americans now saying he's too old to lead the country. The Biden administration publicly insists the 80-year-old leader is fighting fit, and they've got the receipts to prove it. Well, sort of. He remains, of course, a keen cyclist. He has excellent spatial awareness.
2, 10, 12, 15. Oops, stepping on them. It's black. Anyway.
And he has a great sense of direction, of course.
Where is he?
But one thing they can't deny is that Biden has a problem staying on his feet. And that's the focus of the special program they've now put together. This is why they're doing it.
No matter what their cost. 2, 10, 12, 15. Oops, stepping on them. It's black. Anyway.
Well, Axios reports that top Democrats are terrified Biden will suffer a bad fall in the run-up to November's election. Their new two-pronged strategy is to both reduce the number of times Biden falls over by literally training him not to fall over and reduce the opportunities he has to fall over. He'll now board and exit Air Force One through the lower deck, where he'll encounter fewer steps. Instead of boarding the plane like a president, he'll board it a bit like a suitcase. Initial evidence suggests that this may still be a challenge. The report says that Biden will now wear tennis shoes wherever possible instead of adult shoes, so he has better grip. He's also working daily with a physical therapist, and his doctors recommended he improves his balance by conducting proprioceptive maintenance maneuvers. What those maneuvers entail is unclear, but what is crystal clear is that they're all designed to desperately reanimate a president who just doesn't seem fit for the job, physically or mentally. Last night, 7 of the 8 leading Republican presidential candidates faced off in the second Fox debate. Once again, the elephant not in the room was Donald Trump, who's light years ahead in the polls. My question is simply this: surely America and the world can do better than a 77-year-old who's facing jail and an 80-year-old whose campaign strategy is don't fall over. Well, joining me now to discuss all this is a Republican strategist and former chair of the anti-Trump Republicans, Liz Mayer, the Conservative talk radio host sensation, Ben Ferguson, I think he wrote that, and the CEO of Outkick, Clay Travis. Well, welcome to all of you. A stellar panel to debate all things Trump, who is, of course, the elephant in the room. So, Liz, let me start with you. Trump is basically now calling for all Republican debates to be cancelled. Without him, there's no point. The Republican Party should save their money, invest it all in going after Biden. Meanwhile, the president is having a whole plan to try and keep him on his feet. I've got to say, from this end of the pond, this all looks a bit ridiculous. You've got a guy facing 100 criminal charges, and you've got a bloke in the office who can't barely see or walk straight. What is happening?
It's pathetic. I would just like to say at this moment that I'm British as well as American, and I am leaning really hard into being a conservative, which, given how bad our polling is, should really tell you something. Yeah, no, it's pathetic. We have a nation of, what, 350 million people, and this is the best we can do. I'm just lucky I live in a state that nobody's going to be contesting, so I can write in whoever I want and feel good about my vote. But generally, yeah, it's a complete disaster. It's a complete disaster.
Ben Ferguson, it's a complete disaster.
Yeah, I wish you'd stop showing those videos of Joe Biden, because you're about to get rid of the candidate that I desperately want to run any Republican against. So if you'll stop doing that, and let's just say he's brilliant, let's say he's competent, let's say he is a vigorous young man, just like Ronald Reagan, that would make my life a lot easier. But the reality is, Democrats right now put themselves in a corner. If you look at Joe Biden, honestly, right, the way that you just did, you got to be sitting there going, what the hell are we doing? But they're stuck with him. And then you look at Kamala Harris. You say, okay, well, maybe Kamala will calm down people because they'll say, hey, if someone has to take over, at least they'll like the VP. The problem is her approval rating is even worse than Joe Biden's right now, which is at Jimmy Carter levels. So it's a disaster for them. As for the Republicans, look, I think any Republican, Donald Trump, DeSantis, or if somebody else comes along, I don't think it's going to happen based on what I saw at the debates last night. But if someone else came along, they all want to run against Joe Biden because there's no way he can campaign vigorously. And I don't think COVID's going to save him from doing more debates in the future. I think this guy's a train wreck and they know it.
But talking of train wrecks, Donald Trump, who is the runaway favourite now to win Republican nomination and wants all the debates scrapped and so on, he is facing nearly 100 criminal charges. We are into completely unprecedented territory here, where you could end up with the Republican nominee being convicted of some of these charges before an election, potentially even sent to a prison cell, which I suspect would increase his poll numbers, like everything else that's been done legally to him. But how can that be right for America, to have a president sitting in cell block H?
People aren't worried about it. I mean, that's the reality. They're not worried. The Republican Party
may
has
not
made
be,
it
but you
clear.
should
They're
be,
not
shouldn't
worried.
you? As an American
No,
voter.
I'm not either, because I think that these charges, and if you look at them, they're pretty ridiculous and egregious. You made up charges in Georgia when the statute of limitations had already run out, for goodness sakes. And when you fight these, I don't worry about it. And I think the American people showing that they still support him in the Republican primary, he's got a 40-point lead. Combine everyone else's poll numbers, they don't even add up to even anywhere close to where Donald Trump is polling by himself right now. So that's how little Republicans care about this. They know it's a witch hunt. They know it's going after your political opponent in the way they do in the Banana Republic. And the poll numbers show that the majority of Americans, the Republicans, are smart enough to understand this is political crap. It's Banana Republic crap. It's what they do in Russia and China, and they're not worried about it. That's why he's still polling where he is.
All right, Clay Travis, you like DeSantis. I'm interviewed Ron DeSantis. He's an impressive character. He gets stuff done is his big mantra. He's done a very good job as governor of Florida, no doubt about it. It seems to me DeSantis, I thought he was the best on the debate stage last night, actually, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Now, let's take a little look at DeSantis in action last night, actually. I think we have it.
The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing.
You know, the problem, Clay, is he's right. Trump should be there. And I know Chris Christie called him Donald Duck, and that's fine. We all have a good laugh. But if you're Donald Trump, you think, why do I have to bother? I'm so far ahead of all of these people. Why do I have to bother turning up to any debate? I've got this in the bag. He's right, isn't he?
Well, yeah, he's right now so far. And that's why the biggest question coming out of this debate, and thanks for having me on, Piers, by the way, is everybody else needs to drop out of the race, but potentially Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. They need to be able to fight it out, figure out who is the unquestioned number two, and then they need to have a head-to-head with Donald Trump. And remember, as crazy as the Democrat process was in 2020, what did they do? Joe Biden got smoked in Iowa. He got crushed in New Hampshire. He left before the vote was even taken in New Hampshire. I think he finished 5th and 6th. And then what happened? James Clyburn, congressman from South Carolina, said all that matters is beating Donald Trump. Joe Biden is the choice. He's our guy. And it was over. The Democrats said, we're going to pick the guy that we believe is the most electable. It's old, boring, plotting, dementia Joe. They may have gotten lucky with COVID happening, honestly, because that allowed them to keep Joe Biden in the basement and not get out, and everybody could see how physically frail and mentally diminished he was. But they made the decision he's the guy that's most likely to win. Think about this, Piers. Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley running against Joe Biden would be a unmitigated disaster for Democrats. And I think what's changed here is a lot of Republicans are so convinced that Joe Biden is going to lose that they aren't even focused on the electability angle as much as they can be.
Well, I think the problem,
but remember,
look, I think
Trump has half of the electorate right now. The other half is for somebody else.
Right. The problem, I think, for your guy, DeSantis, is I think it's a charisma issue. That most people think he's competent, you know, he's done a good job, blah, blah, blah. He just doesn't have anywhere near Trump's charisma. Funny enough, the one with all the charisma on the stage last night is Vivek Ramaswamy. If you could inject that charisma into DeSantis with his experience as governor and success, you probably have a very, very, very compelling candidate. Let's take a look at Vivek.
Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is. Campaign.
On parental rights in schools.
Parents have the right to know. The very people who say that this increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry, it is not compassionate to affirm a kid's confusion. That is not compassion, that is cruelty. So I will ban genital mutilation or chemical castration under the age of 18.
So I also want to play now the Christie gag about Donald Duck, because it was funny. Let's take a look at this.
And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right.
Now, you see, he's quite funny, Christie, and he's a bit of an old bruiser. I like him. I've known him a long time. And that was a funny gag. If you combine his humour and kind of pugnacious style with Vivek's energy and dynamism and charisma, with the competence of DeSantis, you've got a very, very strong candidate. The problem is none of them have the other two components. And Trump, in his own way, love him, hate him, think he's the worst thing ever, all the greatest things since sliced bread. He has it all. And that's why, at the moment, he's steaming ahead.
Yes.
Can I just jump here and make a couple of points?
That's 100%
First
right.
of all,
Yeah, Liz,
I think it's worth noting, when you take a look at a lot of these post-debate polls, though, what you say about Vivek sounds like it's right, but when you look at how voters are actually responding, he's actually coming off very, very negatively to quite a lot of Republican primary voters. So I'm not sure that you're quite right about his charisma. I agree with you that Ron DeSantis does need some sort of charisma injection, for sure. I'm not sure that him necessarily borrowing from Chris Christie is the best move, though. I actually thought the Donald Duck line fell a little bit flat. I thought it was a little obvious. I didn't find it particularly humorous. I also do think that DeSantis and Christie need to quit saying that Trump needs to show up at these debates, because one of the really interesting things, and we saw this in 2016 also, when Trump skips debates, other people move up and his floor, the absolute minimum that he's going to get, actually goes down. That happened after the last debate. I bet it's going to happen after this debate.
Let me bring in Ben on that.
That does matter.
I agree with you. Ben, here's the issue, it seems to me. Trump could well run away with this Republican nomination. It looks like he might. But if he does, a lot of independents have a problem with Trump. And you've got to win with the independents to become president. And it may be that if Biden insists on running, that the only way the Democrats win that next election is if Trump is the opponent, because the anti-Trump vote comes out, as you know, and the independents don't like him and they won't like all the legal stuff, that actually Trump may steamroller everyone to get the nomination for the Republican Party and then actually lose again.
Yeah, look, I think that there's two things here with Trump. It depends on if he can be a disciplined politician in a general election, and you'll probably laugh at the idea of him being disciplined. But look, he's been pretty smart recently, and I think he's starting to understand that he's got to be smart about how he talks for the same reason that you just said. If he talks about the here and now, and he doesn't take those loaded questions about the past and relitigating the past, and he talks about gas prices and interest rates and the economy and securing the border and building the wall, he will destroy Joe Biden. If he is undisciplined and he goes back and tries to litigate the past and say, I won the last election, he gets bogged down in that, you're right. There's a chance that Joe Biden could win. But Joe Biden will not win because he has the best set of plans for this country or ideas. He is a disaster, a stumbling, bumbling, falling down disaster.
He would win because he's not Donald Trump. I want to end by getting all of you.
He will also win.
Well, hang on. I've run out of time. Here's what I want to ask all of you. And I need straight answers. I want to have the two names for the two people that will face off in this presidential race next year. I want to have a name of a winner as well. So, Liz, you go first.
That's tough to say. It's really tough to say. Right now, the polling does suggest it's going to be Biden and Trump, but I have this sneaking suspicion that somehow it could end up being somebody like Brian Kemp versus Gavin Newsom or J.B. Pritzker, because I think both of these guys are so old and decrepit.
All right.
And
well, you can't name
they
a load
might
of
die.
names.
They might die.
I need two names and a winner. Go on, Liz.
Okay. Well, let's go with Newsom and Kemp. And I think in that contest, I think Kemp dusts Newsom, and I'm a happy camper.
Okay. Ben?
I'm just going to go back to reality. I'll bet you seats at Wimbledon because it's on my bucket list, Piers. It's going to be Trump and Biden, and no one else matters.
And who wins?
I think Donald Trump. I think Joe Biden, and what you showed earlier is going to be what you're going to see for the next year and a half.
There's
Remember,
no doubt about that. And by the way, there will be far more added to the greatest hits too. Clay?
Yeah.
Two names and a winner.
All right, I'll give you a fun one. Piers. I think it's going to be Donald Trump. I think the Democrats are going to end up drafting Michelle Obama.
Wow.
And I think it's going to be Trump versus Michelle Obama.
Wow.
And Michelle Obama finds her way into the White House.
She would be amazing. But I don't.
Shoot her into the Democratic debates. Get ready. She'll come in at the convention. I actually, Clay and I agree on this.
She would be great.
I
think she would be great. I actually think she was.
I think Biden is going to get so much worse physically that it's going to be impossible, and they'll have a brokered convention, and they'll have to find somebody new.
Michelle Obama would be formidable. I think a really good candidate. I just don't think she'll ever do it. But we've got to leave it there. We'll find out. Thank you to my pack. I appreciate it. Uncensored next is either going to save the world or destroy humanity, depending on who you are. So I've asked one of the people with the biggest brains in this game in the world, Yuval Noah Harari, the man they call the AI philosopher. We'll be here next with hopefully some answers. Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. It's been called an alien threat. Elon Musk has warned of a Terminator future. Artificial intelligence has been described in the most apocalyptic terms, but at the same time is making incredible breakthroughs in finding genes that cause disease and transforming IVF, for example. So are we right to fear AI, or should we celebrate it? And can humans even control it when it's developing so rapidly? Philosopher and author Yuval Noah Harari gave me his uncensored take. Yuval, great to see you here in the Piers Morgan Uncensored studio. Last time I interviewed you, you were with us remotely, and we were cut off in our prime in what we thought may be an AI attack. But this time, I can assure you, we won't get cut off. Let's start with AI.
Okay.
Because you're all over this. You, in Fortune magazine this week, described AI as an alien threat that could wipe us out. Instead of coming from outer space, it's coming from California. Quite chilling words. Do you think that there's a real danger that if we mishandle artificial intelligence, it could literally wipe us out?
Yes, and it's not only me. Many of the experts in the field, including the people who developed this technology, share some of the same fears. What everybody needs to know about AI basically is just two things. It's the first tool in human history that can make decisions by itself, and it's the first tool in human history that can create ideas by itself. Atom bombs, in the end, they empowered us because they couldn't make decisions how to use them. A human needed to make the decision. But AI can decide who to bomb and can create completely new ideas in everything from finance to religion.
So it's very interesting because Professor Stephen Hawking, in his last television interview, was with me, as it turned out. And I asked him what was the biggest threat to mankind. And he said, when artificial intelligence learns to self-design.
Yeah.
Now, is what you're describing self-design, or is that another stage
That's
forward?
another stage, but
What's the difference between what you're describing and self-design?
It's basically the same thing. Once it can create new ideas, it can also create new ideas about itself, about its own design. But we are talking about a power that escapes our control. It's one of the deepest fears of humanity for thousands of years, and now it's actually happening.
So it could be like a version of COVID-19 in the sense of it gets out of our control. It turned out COVID wasn't as deadly as the plague, for example, but this could be far more deadly, but it could permeate our life at the same speed.
Yeah, the easiest scenario to imagine is like somebody giving the AI the task of, say, creating this super powerful virus, and the AI just goes along and does it. And
could make it more deadly than a human being could.
Absolutely. Can, again, combine, Ebola with COVID and create something that we are hardly able to even imagine.
It reminds me a little bit. I remember when the first chess computers came out, and they were gigantic, like the Deep Blue. And Garry Kasparov, the Russian grandmaster, beat these computers to start with. But very quickly, they developed at such a rate that now it's impossible for any human being to beat a computer at chess.
Absolutely. In a narrow field like chess, it's long gone. They are better than us.
But are you suggesting that in a way what happened there could be replicated very quickly?
Yes.
And it could lead to our extinction if we're not careful.
In broader fields, yes. It can happen in, again, fields like finance, fields like the job market is under more and more jobs are going to be changed or even replaced.
So let me ask you on jobs. I've got a question for you, which I was thinking about when I knew you were coming in. I'm thinking about this logically. If we end up with a load of factories around the world manned by robots, by AI, then all those people, millions of people who currently work in factories, they're going to be out of work and they have no income. So they can't buy any products that the robots are making in the factories. So that economic model collapses, doesn't it? Or am I being an idiot?
No, this is one of the dangers. Now, it's not likely that there'll be a complete disappearance of jobs. As old jobs disappear, new jobs will emerge.
If I'm like an accountant or a lawyer or somebody like that, where a lot of your work is based in the accountancy case on number crunching. If you're a lawyer, a lot of it is case studies, with existing case studies and developing law and so on. I can quite easily see how AI will very, very quickly make a lot of those jobs redundant because they can do it all at the push of a button.
any job which is basically data coming in, being analyzed, and data coming out, this is the easiest job to automate by AI. Definitely.
What about people like me, broadcasters? I mean, how quickly are we going to get to a place where you could have someone, a robot that looks and sounds like me, that has studied through AI everything I've ever said on air, and I've seen a TED Talk deep fake of me saying the complete opposite of what I think. It was terrifying, and it can't be long before someone could be doing this with AI. Me.
Yes, this we are already there. This is why you have this strike in Hollywood, because they understand these kinds of things. These are no longer science fiction.
Because okay, let's talk about that. That's really interesting. The Hollywood strikes, because AI is at the center of it, and what their fear is, if I understand it correctly, is that you could be a movie star and you sign a 5-movie deal with some for some franchise thing, and the first 2 come out, and then you want to get out of your deal, and they say, fine, but we've got enough now where we can just use AI to make the last 3 without you.
Yes, I mean,
is that a realistic thing?
Absolutely. If you have enough data on someone, enough footage of how they look, how they move around, their voice, their how they sound, you can create deep fakes of that person.
AI can now compose songs like a band, like I think it was Oasis, right? It actually did a song, AI, that was based on Oasis's music catalogue, and it sounded like an Oasis song.
Yeah, and again, human society is basically based on trust between human beings. We are facing the possibility of millions, even billions of fake humans overrunning our society, leading to the collapse of trust between people.
How do we stop this happening? What is the
ban fake humans, ban counterfeit humans.
Let me try and have some positive to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which is, it's an awesome power, AI. In things like medicine, for example, we have so many cancers which have never been solved by a human brain. Is it likely in the near to middling future that AI, with these superpowers, will be able to perhaps find a cure for all cancers, for example?
Yes, or at least for some of them. And this is the big promise. If there wasn't a positive potential, there would have been no danger, because nobody would have wanted to develop this thing.
Elon Musk and the others who signed 1,000 names who signed this thing asking for a 6-month pause, it sounds like they were right.
Yes, I think, again, it's not necessarily opposed to the development of AI, it's opposed to the deployment into the public sphere.
I could talk to you for hours. You're such a smart guy. Thank you for coming in. Although
you have inviting me.
You've painted a slightly apocalyptic picture, I have to say, Yuval. So I hope that the world listens.
So
and we do something
I'll
about
just say again, this is a warning, not a prophecy.
No, I understand.
We still have the agency to.
It's in our hands
stop.
at the moment.
Yeah, it's completely in our hands.
But it is in our hands, and the problem with that is, I'm not sure I completely trust our ability to do what we should be doing. But we'll find out. Hopefully not the hard way. Yuval, thank you very much. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Well, that was just a taste of a really fascinating interview with a highly intelligent guy who really gets all the issues about AI. Yuval Noah Harari. That whole interview, unedited, there's a lot more of it. Will be on our Uncensored YouTube channel in the next couple of days. We've now got over 1.5 million subscribers. So thank you for those who subscribed. And if you haven't yet, what's keeping you? So much great content there for you to salivate over, and including that full extended interview, which is honestly fascinating and quite alarming. But I feel comfortable that people like him are looking into this properly, because we need that kind of smarts to do it. Uncensored next, the Scottish Ballet plans to introduce a twist on the classic Cinderella story. Yeah, you guessed it. She'll be played by a bloke who's rescued by a woman. Of course, I'll debate Cinderfella going to the balls or whatever it is with the pack next. Good evening, I'm Piers Morgan, Uncensored, in New York City.
Yeah.
King Piers and King Q.
I think it's only room for one king, man. You know what I'm saying?
He's mocked your weight, Trump.
Yeah, look at him. Fail. Not working.
Just because they're skin folk don't mean they're kin folk.
Do you believe you can win this war?
You're making me cry again.
They're trying to force you out.
Yes, I feel betrayed.
Keep it award-winning. Mwah.
Lucy Letby will die behind bars.
And a senior doctor who first raised concerns about Letby wants NHS managers to be regulated.
We needed answers a lot sooner. This is, what, 7 years down the line? I mean, it's completely ludicrous.
We need accountability, we need performance in all walks of life.
If this nurse had misgendered somebody on a ward, she'd have been out the door.
When they first got together, there were press stories, Waity Katie.
That would make her a better Princess of Wales.
Ghislaine Maxwell agreed to be interviewed for the very first time.
I honestly wish I'd never met him.
Donald Trump has just said he expects to be arrested at 7:30 p.m.
The Conservative Party can certainly win the next election.
Can we?
Yes,
Labour
absolutely.
29 points ahead in the polls. Can we?
Did he say, yes, I have taken drugs and they bent the rules, or lied on the visa application form and therefore got it?
There needs to be an intervention around abortion laws.
Parliament is sovereign. Parliament can determine these things.
The rest of the world has watched on in sort of mounting horror as this story has unravelled. For you, it was incredibly personal.
The death toll from the Titanic tragedy has risen to 1,522, and may God rest their souls.
Let it roll.
If we stop producing oil, the knock-on effect is far larger than just CO2.
I nearly have empathy when I'm speaking to them. I know now you're probably going to boot me off the show after saying this now. Oh,
Get her out!
Markle, about
Get her
Meghan
out!
Markle. Some of them, they're easily led.
You can kiss my American ass. Thank you very much. Very nice of you.
Twitter, you sons of... Can you please reinstate my account?
Yeah,
Thank you.
There's a threat that you'd be worried about.
So are you saying that you're being overwhelmed, that you're inundated? We are really working hard for you. We're just asking patients to be patient with us.
We're now in Barbie world. You weren't asked to give evidence to the grand jury.
I'm the only one that has been telling the truth.
You don't drink, never taken drugs. You're stinking rich. Should we be concerned, Prime Minister?
If it's on your mind, it's on TalkTV.
Is about you and your opinions.
If you're thinking about it, we're talking about it.
It's all about me. That's a joke.
This is TalkTV.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I'm joined by my super PAC. First time these three have been together. TalkTV's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott, TalkTV contributor, Paula Rowan-Adrian, and the comedian, his words not mine, James Barr. Welcome to all of you.
Wow, you're so gracious, Piers.
Just a little gag, James, just to get you in the right spirit. I want to pay a little tribute before we get to the PAC to one of Britain's greatest ever actors. And I use that phrase very deliberately. Sir Michael Gambon has died aged 82. So many things you could say about him. He just had an amazing career, amazing range. He was one of the true greats that our theatre has ever produced. And of course, did many great movies and so on. I once interviewed him at the National Theatre, where he played many a great role. And I asked him what he thought of the increasing malaise of sort of talentless, Z-list celebrity wannabes trying to be stars. And he went, you know, all I've ever wanted to do was act. I remember sitting in this very dressing room after my first hit here, and people outside applauding when they saw me at the window. And that was so exciting. It's what I wanted, recognition of my work. But what all these modern celebrities want is a quick buck with no talent or hard work required. It's awful. So I said to him, what would you call this type of person? And Sir Michael looked at me and smirked and said, I would call them a cretin. R.I.P. Sir Michael. You were brilliant on stage and you were brilliant off it to interview. A great actor. I want to talk about another theatrical story. Cinderella, the Scottish ballet, is doing what everyone does now. They're taking a very popular classic fairy tale, which obviously is about a woman, identifying as a woman. And they're going to switch it around. So apparently audiences won't know, apparently, from night to night. It'll be very exciting, whether it'll be Cinderella or Cinderella. To which my point, Isabel, is why can't they just leave this stuff alone? Why do the woke brigade have to come for everything? Why do they have to ruin everything? Why do they have to degender, change gender, abuse gender? Why can't they just leave us alone, these people? Why can't Cinderella be Cinderella?
Do you know something really weird? This was actually first done in the 60s.
Yes.
There was a thing called Cinderfella.
Yes.
A film. I think it was
Jerry
a film.
Lewis. Yes.
Yeah,
It was a fantastic joke.
This is not
It was a joke.
Not well. It was satire, wasn't it? But it's not.
Yes.
So this isn't even original. Look, I'm going to actually surprise you and say, I actually think this.
Oh,
sounds quite
God,
fun.
no, you've gone.
I think it
You've
sounds
gone.
quite fun.
We've
Look,
lost you.
I wouldn't take my kids to it.
You're
but
supposed to be on this pack as a voice of common sense.
I
What's the
know.
matter with you?
Come on, it's quite entertaining.
Huh?
I mean,
No, it's
I
not.
quite like that element of jeopardy. Is it going to be Cinderella or
But hang on a minute,
Cinderella?
Isabel. You wouldn't take your children to it. Come on, of course you would.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
It's an
I
absolute
wouldn't take any
pile
of
of
my
old
kids to it.
rubbish. It's just attention seeking.
James, all right, James,
Listen,
I know what
it's
you're going to
great.
say. Why?
Why are
though?
you bothered? But actually, it's a really important thing because it's flipping the narrative and making
not
the guy.
What's the
victim.
narrative?
No,
It's not
it is
important.
because it's turning the guy into the victim who needs saving,
Oh, no.
and ultimately,
Okay, now
we
he's
all
lost me.
need saving.
No,
Particularly
no,
you right now on this
I
panel.
don't
by
need
the looks of things.
saving.
Well, why don't you love
Everyone
this?
needs
It's
to
an
save me.
upside down realm where everyone is. You could actually play one of the Ugly Sisters. Finally, your dream role.
Oh, you came to play, didn't you?
Ow.
Oh.
But on a serious
Paula.
note, we talk about masculine toxicity, and here we have the classic example. Why aren't you supporting this? Why don't you want men to be vulnerable? Why don't you want other men
God.
to see
Okay,
men
Piers, I've changed
in
my mind.
that
See
kind
what
of
you've
role?
done?
Oh, I've changed my
I'm just
mind.
saying.
I don't
I'm
mind
just
men
saying.
being vulnerable, but you know what I love most in the world? I like a stiff
Tradition.
upper British lip.
A bit
Wow.
of tradition.
I like
Okay.
people who don't spend their entire time
And that
blubbing.
is what
their entire
these
time
men who
playing
are in
the
this
victim.
role have.
I
They
don't
have
want
resilience
I'm
to stand up
absolutely
against this
done
kind of stuff.
up to here with the victim culture that we now have to endure, where everyone's a victim. Weakness is celebrated.
I think there's a difference
strength
between
is
being a victim and
strength
being
is a
vulnerable.
problem. Right? Everyone has to emote 24/7.
Did
you
you
come
not
into
ask-
work.
Did you not ask the question?
can't handle
Piers?
it.
Why?
completely-
He asked the question, why? That sounded like a victim to me.
Do you know
These are
who's not?
strong
I'll tell you who's
men
not a victim.
who are
I'll tell you who's
voices.
not a victim. Mick Jagger, right? Who's 80 years old, still doing his thing. Amazing, really. Physical freak to be still prancing around doing that. I mean, look at Joe Biden by comparison.
I know.
They're within about 8 months of age, right? Mick Jagger has announced he's not going to give his money to his 8 kids. He's got apparently $500 million, right? I like that idea. If my kids are watching, I really like that idea. Because why would he give? Why would you give, Isabel, all that cash to young people before they've even tried to make their own way in many of the cases of his kids? Some are still very young. Why remove all hunger? People I know who've done that too. I know people who've given their kids loads
It's
of
a
money.
very bad idea.
It kills the
Yeah.
hunger.
Yeah, I could.
And without a hunger and
Yeah.
desire to make that money
Yeah.
for yourself, I think you end up with just a wasted life.
I completely agree with you. I am going to assume that he's leaving them something. They probably already have assets,
Yeah.
whether it's property or whatever. But absolutely, if you make life too easy for your children, if they don't actually have to feel a bit of a struggle, then there's nothing to get up for. And they
You know,
drift,
it was.
they drift around, they flop around.
Yeah,
you know,
I talked to Cristiano Ronaldo about this, right? And we had dinner one night after I interviewed him the first time, and he was saying that his son's very good at football, his older son, and he said he's very, very good, but he can't give him the hunger that he had.
Yeah.
He was literally
Yeah,
hungry.
hungry. Yes.
He used to sit round the back of a McDonald's, and two lovely ladies. He said, "I wish I could." We tried to find them, but we couldn't. They used to give him the cast-off.
That's problematic.
Yeah, we used to give him the cast-off Big Macs, right?
Right.
And he said that was how hungry I was. So
Yeah.
everything was driven by this intense desire to get out of that cycle he was in of hunger. But when his son has now got a dad worth $1 billion, probably, right? You can't give. That doesn't mean to say he won't develop his own desire and hunger. It's so much harder to instill it in someone, right?
I would just say I'd like to pick up on what you said there because you were commending Mick Jagger for jumping around on stage at his age.
Yes.
But you wouldn't say that about Madonna. So I do think there's some hypocrisy.
No, because
there.
it's the way she dresses and the way she humiliates
And
herself.
leading on from that, I'm not actually concerned whether Mick Jagger would leave his children money. I mean, Jerry Hall, Bianca Jagger. I mean, these are strong women. They are there supporting the children. So this isn't really about Mick Jagger leaving his children.
But it's more about a
$500
principle. I do think I've seen people leave their kids too much money, and they just remove any incentive to
How much money are you leaving your kids, Piers?
Very little.
Right.
Actually, well, I say very little. I'd like to think I can help them in some way, right? I would like to remove from everybody, right? Never mind my kids, but anyone's kids, right? I'd like to remove the stress of having no money. I think the stress of not being able to feed yourself or feed your children or your family or whatever, That is one of the worst stresses in the world outside of bad health, right?
And I think this is ultimately the problem with this article, because Mick Jagger can sit back and laugh about how he's not going to leave. He's very comfortable children, more money. They don't need it.
It'd be interesting to know what he is going to do with it. I don't know whether he's revealed that.
He said he might give it to charity, so you might do some good in the world.
Yeah, well, that's
Give
great.
it to an LGBTQ plus charity.
Not enough. Hang on, what did you call it? LGBT?
Don't even start.
Hang on, what did you call it?
Don't even start.
What happened to the two?
Oh, goodness me.
Where are the twos?
Yeah, they're there.
No, you didn't say two.
Leave me alone.
No, I won't.
You don't come on this show to be left alone.
You have ungendered the twos.
Two
spirits.
The two spirits, of course. No, they're very.
Where are they then? Why didn't
They're
you
in
say
there.
2 plus?
2 LGBTQIA+.
Wow, I'm really disappointed in you, James.
Thank you.
I really think. I mean, obviously by tomorrow there'll be another one, but at the moment it is Q2 plus.
Do you think
It
we
is.
should
Now I know
cancel-
that, and I'm surprised you
I
don't
think
know
we
that.
should cancel him. Maybe.
Well,
Maybe.
honestly,
Hold on a second. I thought you'd caught the woke mind virus.
as a
2 seconds
two-spirit
ago, and
penguin
now-
myself, I've identified as a two. I'm actually personally taking that very
So
badly.
you're saying you're half black and half white?
No, I'm a two-spirit penguin. Well, I think we all are a bit. I had
Half
my
black,
DNA.
half white.
I had my DNA done.
Right.
No, 0 English in me.
Really?
Zero.
What's in
Mainly
you?
Irish, a bit of Scottish. They charted me back to Robert the Bruce. Little bit of Welsh. A little bit of Middle Eastern.
Quite a lot of misogyny.
But absolutely, sorry?
And a lot of misogyny.
Ooh! But 0 English. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And yet I was born
How
in
the
England.
Scottish would feel about that. So I'm thinking that we're on a work due to Scotland to watch the ballet, right?
No, we're not.
Right.
We're going to talk instead about... Is calling somebody woke as bad as a racial slur? Actress Kathy Tyson said in an interview with The Telegraph, "For me, it's as bad a term as an offensive racial slur. The term woke and race guard are deeply offensive to me," she quoted. So the latter is thrown in your face if you make criticism of anything. So here's the thing, James. I don't think it is, because I read a whole book about this. I identify as woke by the original definition, which came from the American music business in the 60s. And it was about raising awareness of social and racial injustice. I absolutely, by that criteria, I'm a woke person, right? What's happened is woke has become hijacked by a lot of social media mobs in particular, and they use it as a form of fascism now to basically try and make everybody conform to their way of thinking. That's my problem with it.
See, I find that interesting because I actually think it's that, but also the opposite of that, in that people use it as a slur to say, to undermine your...
I think it's become a slur by definition because the people in that woke world who identify themselves
Well,
as
I'm not
woke,
entirely sure why you're blaming woke people for that.
because a lot of them, I think, are actually worthy of condemnation for propagating the nonsensical views they have and then expecting all of us to agree with it.
But you have actually used the word woke about me as a slur. You've called me a wokey
Yes,
or whatever.
I called you a wokey.
Right, exactly. So, in a way, you're...
That's because you propagate woke thought processes which are ridiculous.
So you think it's ridiculous to, like, stand against racism?
Well, no, but if I asked you, for example, should biological males be allowed to compete in women's sport? Hang on, what would you say?
This is a crazy question that I'm not here to talk about.
What would you say?
Because it's not something
you can't
I'm an
answer,
expert
can you?
on. I'm not an expert on it.
No.
So
I know.
You also probably don't have
you don't
the
want to
right
say,
answer.
because you know what you would have to say to fit the criteria of being a wokey, you would have to say you agree with it. And in that moment, everyone watching at home goes, well, you're a complete lunatic then. You're a wokey by the common definition today.
But she's a complete classic of the genre, isn't she? Because she's going on about how deeply offended she is. And that is the whole thing about wokery. It's continually about people being offended
by everything.
And causing offence. And
everyone.
Everyone. And I mean...
So should Suella Braverman have been deeply offended by Gary Lineker's tweet? I don't think she should have been. But she told us that she was. She told us how outraged she was and how offended she was and insulted
Paul, I
she
don't
was.
think even you
and
think
he
that...
was suspended for that.
I don't think even you, as a black woman, can feel comfortable that calling someone woke is as bad as a racial slur. Come on.
What the point is, and it's a point that I agree with James and pick up on, it's used now as a pejorative, isn't it? It's used to insult.
When it's deserved. When it's deserved, yeah.
I don't think it is when it's deserved. I think it's just thrown out there for anybody who happens to say, hang on a minute, is this fair?
No, I would say
Is this
99% of people that I call woke in a derogatory manner deserve it because they're being ridiculous.
So it is a slur, you agree?
Well, I'm just going to say, but
does
that's
it
the
really
point.
I don't think it even comes
using
close
as
to being a slur as like a
But
racial
you're using
slur.
it as a slur.
Well, I'm not. I'm saying that your views, the woke world's view of life, I find ridiculous, right? Utterly ridiculous. Therefore, I'm using it as a term of mockery. Abusing someone about their skin colour is a completely different, and in my view, far more serious thing.
So why are you using the word woke? Why don't you stop using the word
Because
woke
you know
as
why?
a pejorative
Because
You know why?
and say that what you are saying
You know
is
why, Paula?
ridiculous or what you're
Because-
saying is nonsense?
Because it really annoys the wokies when I call them
wokies.
I don't think we're annoyed, are we, Paula?
Oh, yes.
I'm pretty
I
calm.
have a
actually.
big
I'm not annoyed at
smile on
all.
my face
I feel
at
really
wokies.
proud of being called woke because
Because-
it means I'm trying to make the world a better place.
And
No, you're
not only
not,
that,
like
but you know what
Woke
happens,
people
Piers?
make the world a worse place. They make it a joyless,
ridiculous,
humorless,
Offended,
fascist state
sad,
where everybody has to look the same, sound the
miserable.
same, say the right
That is
things,
absolutely-
can't crack any
that's
jokes.
actually disgusting.
Blah,
to say that we
blah,
all
blah.
want
It is
people to look
disgusting.
the
I agree.
same.
We finally agree,
How
James.
could you
It
possibly
is.
think that we all want each other to look the same when we're all about inclusivity for
Do you know, I've
everyone?
just realised, looking at you sitting in that chair, you're the new Richard Tice.
Thank you.
Although I couldn't think of anybody
That sounds like a slur.
less like Richard Tice in the entire world.
Slur. It's a great compliment.
That definitely felt like a slur, to be honest with you.
Actually,
I'm
it's a
putting my
com-
Ofcom
I'm gonna
complaint
take
in
it
tonight.
as a
woke
great
Richard Tice.
compliment.
Yes.
It's a compliment. And in about a minute, when you go off there, you're going to realise why Isabel may not see that as a slur. Are you aware that...
No.
Oh, right.
Oh, tell me, what have I missed?
Oh, they're an item.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you've
I'm
just
so sorry,
abused
Isabel.
Isabel's
Oh,
power.
goodness me.
All right.
Right, which is fine, but, you know, you might feel a little uncomfortable now.
Right, no, well...
No,
Which is
no,
great,
no.
because I made it
See, I
end-
didn't get offended.
I made it end.
Neither would he.
I made it end with a moment of excruciating, mortifying embarrassment for James Barr, and that's always a good way to finish a pack. Great to see you. Come back soon, James.
Thank you.
Uncensored. This is going to be great. Uncensored. Could the space aliens presented in Mexico's parliament recently be real? I know exactly the person to ask. The great William Shatner. Coming next.
It's a jam-packed hour on the talk tonight, darlings.
It is. Coming up, Pink Floyd frontman Roger Waters faces accusations of repeated anti-Semitism in a disturbing new documentary, and an undercover investigation reveals widespread misuse of police body cameras on the front line.
And what's your marriage language? Oh, a new TikTok trend sees loved-up couples share their toe-curling vernacular.
That's all at 9 o'clock.
Welcome back. A Mexican UFO enthusiast captured the world's imagination earlier this month by presenting what he claimed were the remains of 2 aliens to the Mexican parliament. Some cried hoax. Many simply wanted to believe. Who better to adjudicate than a man who's met more fake space aliens than we've had hot dinners? The great William Shatner, star of The Unexplained on History Channel and Netflix, joins me. William, great to see you again. How are you?
Oh, Piers, it's great to see you. And what a subject matter, huh?
Well, it's perfect timing with your new series of The Unexplained. Here we have what look like alien mummies, effectively. What did you make of it?
Well, what do you mean? See, that question itself. What do you mean it looks like aliens? The only reason it looks like an alien is some guy at one of those science fiction movies drew what he thought was an alien, conceived of what he thought an alien would look like. And now we have an alien that looks like what this guy thought of in his imagination. Nobody's ever seen it, but it now looks mysteriously like the thing we saw in that movie.
Let me ask you,
it's wonderful.
Do you believe that there are aliens and we're just not being told about them? Do you think governments know?
Now, listen, Piers, there are in uncountable galaxies that contain uncountable stars which have planets circling it. It is mathematically impossible for there not to be life on other planets.
Yes.
Just impossible.
I agree.
Life, for example, life here on Earth looks for the ability to live everywhere. Trees are fighting each other for the sunlight and the animals and the flowers and the grass and then you have humans. Let me live. Life is an imperative. It can't be that we're alone. It can't also be that it cannot just be carbon-based.
Yeah.
So the chances of life being in other places is, to me, not even a chance.
No, we did a bit of research here. One of my team did a bit of pitch research to your associations as Captain Kirk with aliens. So you worked with some. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, this, but Spock. You fought with some. We've got a picture of you fighting a big alien there, and you made love to a lot of aliens in Star Trek, like Marta, the green-skinned.
So passionate.
Like the green-skinned Orion slave girl.
Yeah, except the paint kept coming off on my costume.
Do you think when you go off this mortal coil, and I don't think it's ever going to happen to you, I think you're actually eternal, but if you ever do you think you will encounter other worlds? Do you dream that maybe one day you'll meet all these things?
Now you're touching on that phrase, the final frontier.
Yeah.
On my show, I think I'm able to say the name because of the strike. The final frontier was space, but actually the final frontier is death. We don't know it's an unexplained mystery. We don't know what's out there. So I would like to think that as apparently the drug guy said on his last breath, of course. That was his last phrase.
Yeah.
As he took his last breath, he said, of course, as though he realized, he saw the logic behind everything. I'd like to think that happens. And we know, without being able to communicate it, what everything means. Because everything, shy of a few unassailable facts like, I don't know, the fact that you're still alive and doing your program, everything is changeable. Everything changes. So What is out there? Will it be the same? Will you know it? It's Unexplained, and that's the name of the show.
William, I've got 20 seconds left. If you knew you had 1 day left on this earth, how would you spend it? 20 seconds.
I would love to do an interview with Piers Morgan in the last 20 seconds. Can you imagine?
Done. Agreed. I would
Goodbye,
love that
Piers.
too.
I'll let you know.
William
The
Shatner.
Unexplained.
I love
I'll explain
having you on
it
the
to
show. The Unexplained in every way is brilliant. Great to see you. Thank you very much. Whatever you're up to, keep it uncensored like William Shatner. One of my heroes. Good evening, I'm Piers Morgan, Uncensored, in New York City.
Yeah.
King Piers and King Q.
I think it's only room for one king, man. You know what I'm saying?
He's mocked your weight, Trump.
Yeah, look at him. Fail. Stop working.
Just because they're skin folk don't mean they're kin folk.
Do you believe you can win this war?
He's making me cry again.
They're trying to force you out.
Yes, I feel betrayed.
Keep it award-winning. Mwah.
Lucy Letby will die behind bars.
And a senior doctor who first raised concerns about Letby wants NHS managers to be regulated.
We needed answers a lot sooner. This is, what, 7 years down the line? I mean, it's completely ludicrous.
We need accountability, we need performance in all walks of life.
If this nurse had misgendered somebody on a ward, she'd have been out the door.
When they first got together, there were press stories, Waity Katie.
That would make her a better Princess of Wales.
Ghislaine Maxwell agreed to be interviewed for the very first time.
I honestly wish I'd never met him.
Donald Trump has just said he expects to be arrested at 7:30 p.m.
The Conservative Party can certainly win the next election.
Can we?
Yes,
Labour
absolutely.
29 points ahead in the polls. Can we?
Did he say, yes, I have taken drugs and they bent the rules, or lied on the visa application form and therefore got it?
There needs to be an intervention around abortion laws.
Parliament is sovereign. Parliament can determine these things.
The rest of the world has watched on in sort of mounting horror as this story has unravelled. For you, it was incredibly personal.
The death toll from the Titanic tragedy has risen to 1,522, and may God rest their souls.
Let it roll.